All right, everybody, welcome back. Totally Driven Radio. All right, so we all set, Nick?
Looks like we are ready to go, brother.
Nice. Hey, real quick, I'll give you a quick laugh. I got a text from my buddy, I guess, as we were playing the new TV Nation song, and the text said, "What the hell are you playing?" We got to teach him. We got to teach him. Hey, Bert, you'll learn. You'll learn. But anyway, let's welcome our first guest to Totally Driven Radio, Mr. James Arena, and his good friend, Miss Alfa Anderson. How you both doing?
Hello there.
Hi,
how are you?
Hello. We're great.
I am so excited for this.
We're excited too.
We're excited too.
Most people that know me, I'm like a major like hard rock fan, like the heavier rock and heavy metal fan. But like my secret love is disco. And people laugh when I tell them that, and when I get all into disco music, and they just like look at me like, "What?" Like, no, but it really is. So
See,
I am
you have
very
to get out
excited.
there and be a little more. You have to announce it more and say it with pride that you love disco.
I know, right? It's I need to be more like you, James.
Well, I certainly do love disco, and I guess I proved it with the book. But yeah, I mean, what is there to be embarrassed about, or to be ashamed of? Disco is great music. It was beautifully orchestrated, incredible vocals, probably some of the most memorable songs of the past 4 or 5 decades, and everybody knows these songs. So I never understood why there was such a problem with disco music and people, being reluctant to admit that they like it.
You know
and
what,
that's
man?
the truth. What's that, Nick?
I think, though, that people don't realize how many disco songs they know, man, because just a couple of minutes ago, you were like, you never heard of this guy, Nick, and then you played the songs, and I was like, of course I've heard those. Everybody knows those songs. So
exactly
it's crazy,
right.
like, absolutely.
Yeah, and especially like whenever there's like a wedding reception or something like that, what's the most played songs? It's like disco songs.
Yeah. And if you play in wedding bands, it's those songs that come up over and over again, too, because they're happy songs, and they bring people together. They're celebratory in a way that
really
a lot
are.
of other music is not.
That's true.
And that's Alfa Anderson, and boy, she would know, having been one of the amazing vocalists behind the group Chic, who had some of the biggest disco hits ever. So certainly she knows the reaction that people have to this kind of music, and she's seen it firsthand with thousands and thousands of people cheering Chic on. So she certainly does know.
Yeah, so let's properly introduce both of you. We have James Arena, who is an author who wrote 2 books that were released last year, The First Ladies of Disco and also The First Legends of Disco. And his good friend with him tonight is, Alfa, you're a legend. She was one of the singers from the band Chic with, like he said, some of the biggest disco hits of all time. We have a very star quality company tonight.
Well, thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, and it's a great pleasure to be here. And speaking with Alfa, I certainly feel she's one of the most esteemed people in either of these books. And her heritage in disco is extraordinary. I would just point out that First Legends of Disco, the second book, just came out recently, last month, give or take, and First Ladies of Disco came out during the summer of last year. But between both books, we have 72 of the biggest stars from disco music living today, and it's really extraordinary.
Now, what made you want to write these books, James?
I love disco music, as I said before. I grew up with this music, and it was really important to me. It's been a source of great inspiration and great joy and entertainment for my entire life. And I was never a dancer or anything like that. I was never running to clubs or doing things like that, but I sure loved the music. And I thought at this point in time, I wanted to know more about these people that created this music. To me, the music has lasted for decades, and is so extraordinary, I wanted to know more about the people that were responsible for it. And so in the first book, First Ladies of Disco, I gathered some of the female vocalists of some of the biggest hits, like Gloria Gaynor, Carol Douglas, Carol Williams, Norma Jean Wright, also of Chic at one time. And then in the second book, I knew I was going to have to expand the roster a little bit. So I put so I gathered some of the men and women from disco, producers, singers, and even a DJ from the Studio 54 days. So it's really, between the two books, there's a great mix of people.
Now, something really just jumped out at me that you said, and you said you're not a dancer.
I'm a very short guy, and let me tell you, when I went into discotheques, it was an awful experience for me. I would get trampled by the people. They'd be resting their drinks on my head. It was horrible. It was not fun. It was very, very unpleasant. But I did enjoy the music, though. I have to say that. So I would stay home and listen to my records. I know that sounds kind of sad, but it was true. I was perfectly happy not going to a discotheque.
So you weren't involved in the music business or nothing like that? You were just a fan of disco?
I was in the music business for 20 years. I've worked for the Bertelsmann Music Group, which was the parent company of RCA Records and Arista. So I worked for them for many, many years. That it's really not connected to my love of disco music. That's something separate.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, when you were writing the books, was there like people that you were reaching out to that didn't want to be part of the book?
There were a few people, and the primary reason, there were probably two primary reasons why they wouldn't consent to be in the book. One was the possibility that they wanted to write their own books at some point down the road,
Gotcha.
Which I certainly can understand that. But there were a few that did not feel they should be classified as disco. And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about people not feeling very positively about the word disco.
Right.
They kind of feel that term is kind of limiting, and these singers didn't want to be just associated with disco. Listen, I think personally you can have some great disco hits be associated with disco, but that by no means meant that that's all you could do. So I wish that some of those people had thought differently, but I certainly have a wonderful selection of artists and producers that do feel strongly about disco and did respect the music and were happy to be associated with it in these books.
Now, when you were writing the books, like you said, like you have this love of disco, and you were able to get all these former stars of the era as part of these books. I mean, how was that for you personally? These were probably people you look up to be able to interact and interview and ask questions to these people.
Absolutely it was. I can't even begin to tell you what that was like for me. I mean, these people were and are my heroes, and to be able to speak to so many of them and have them open up to me and tell me their very personal stories in some cases was really incredible for me. I was really honored by it because I was not an established writer by any means, and for them to trust me was a big leap on their part, and they did, and it really meant a lot to me. I'm very grateful to every one of them. If they hadn't, I wouldn't have much of a book, I'll tell you. It would be my opinions about disco, and I don't think anybody would care about that.
And I just want to add that our trust was very well placed, James, because you've told our stories beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you, Alpha. And now just listen to that. How incredible is it to get a compliment from somebody that was associated with the incredible group Chic? That's like amazing to me.
Yeah, and like I said, Alpha, with all you got to say is The Freak and I Want Your Love, Good Times.
Yes.
Huge hits. And being a part of the scene, what was it like, especially like when The Freak just blew up and it was everywhere? How was that for yourself and the band?
It was an incredible experience. When you write something, you're really not sure how it's going to come out. Of course, I didn't write. I was on the singing end. But now Rogers tells the story. Have you heard this story? Do you think your listeners would like to know the story of how that song came about?
Absolutely.
Now it's told at several. Do you know the story?
I was as I was doing research, I came across a story which I think is what you're going to tell, but I want to hear it from you.
No, is the story about Studio 54?
Oh, no, not at all. Okay.
No? Okay,
Nope.
so this is a story of them trying to go to Studio 54. They had been invited by Grace Jones to meet them there at Studio 54, and they went to the stage door or to the door and knocked on the door. And, you know, they always had these bouncers, these big burly guys who decided who gets in and who, you know, doesn't get into this club. And they slammed the door in their faces, and they knocked again and said, "No, we're serious. We're friends of Grace Jones, and she invited us." So they slammed the door. They went back home to one of their apartments and picked up their axes and just started playing. And like many artists, you pour your frustrations and your experiences, your life experiences, into your music. So what became Le Freak actually started out as, and I will not say it, but it was an FU Studio 54.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That was the original lyric of that song.
That's funny.
And they were grooving, and they said, "Oh, this groove sounds really, really great. Now, how can we turn this into something that the public will accept?" And it became Le Freak. That's how they came up with that song. And it actually became one of the biggest selling songs in Atlantic Records history, actually.
Now, how incredible is that? See, I'm telling you, that's why these books are so great, because you get to hear stories like this that I don't think a lot of people know is the background of these classic songs. I mean, who would have guessed that was the background of that song? It's really fascinating information.
Yeah, I'm actually, the story I read was a little different. The way they had it was actually the band was in the studio fighting, and that's what I had read. But I like your story better.
Okay. Well, that's the story that I was told, and that's what Alan Bernard told us before we recorded it. So
I'm going with Alpha's version on this one.
Me too. Now, let me ask both of you this question. Back in the day of the 70s, when disco exploded, what do you think was the biggest factor in that? Do you think it was a particular song, maybe, or do you think it was, you know, something like a Soul Train or Studio 54 or Saturday Night Fever? Do you think it was something like that, or do you think it was the music?
I think all of those things were contributing factors. You know, music is made for its time, and I think we were in a time in our history where we really wanted to tear down the walls that were dividing people, and we wanted to open up and embrace everybody. And this music was able to do that in a way that had not been done before. I mean, at our concerts, actually, you would see blacks and whites and straights and gays, everybody dancing and enjoying each other together. And I think that's a time when people were beginning to say, we don't like this separation, you know, and I really believe in the power of music to create cultural empathy.
I would definitely agree with Alpha on all of that, and I would really pinpoint the explosion really hitting with Saturday Night Fever because of the fact that movie and its soundtrack glamorized the whole scene so that Middle America could start to participate in it. It was no longer a phenomena that was just occurring in New York at Studio 54. There were discos opening everywhere, and once people saw this movie, I think they were very interested in exploring this new way to have fun, and I think that's what opened the floodgate. Unfortunately, the floodgate really opened up, and I think the market became oversaturated with disco, thus causing a little bit of a backlash by the end of the 70s. But definitely Alpha's right. I think we're coming off of the 60s where it was so intense and there were so many problems, and I think people just wanted to have fun. They were ready to have fun again.
Sure. Now, as a matter of fact, one of my questions was, and you just gave me a great segue there, James, was you said the oversaturation. And being the hard rock fan that I am, bands like one of my favorite bands of all time, Kiss, they jumped on the disco bandwagon back in like 79, 80. So what was like artists like yourself, Alpha? What did you think of that at that time when people were trying to jump on the bandwagon that you guys, basically created?
Well, it's wonderful. As a matter of fact, Kiss was friends with Nile and Bernard.
Okay.
Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards, who were the co-founders of Chic, they're all friends. Okay. And Tony Thompson, because they're Queens guys.
Gotcha.
And Tony lived in Queens, so they were all friends. So they were all loving it. They didn't think anything about it. They didn't think anything negative. Well, let me say it that way. There were no negative thoughts about it. So we all loved it. We thought it was really, really cool, and we loved their stage makeup. We were going, darn, why couldn't we think of something like that?
I think one of the problems with that was when you take an act like Kiss, or you take Rod Stewart or somebody that was kind of associated with rock music, I think the rock audience felt that they had sold out to this form of music that was basically taking over everything and nudging rock out of the spotlight. And I think that's why you had the record burning incident in Comiskey Park in Chicago. And I think it all just builds up to that. I think if disco had evolved a little slower and hadn't taken over the media and everything the way it had, I think we'd be talking about disco still existing today with the word disco 40 years later, instead of just really that 10-year span that it had.
Right.
Right.
But
right.
You're right. You're right about that, James. But I'm also listening and I'm hearing that. Well, would you agree? And this is to everybody. Would you agree that maybe disco music just went underground and became dance music?
Absolutely.
They just took the label and relabeled it.
That is exactly what happened. I absolutely agree with that.
Totally.
Because by the time you get into the 80s, you've got the Pointer Sisters coming out with what are essentially disco records, but now everybody calls it dance music.
Yes.
Right. You're right.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I guess around that 1980 is probably when the disco name, shall we say, became kind of like taboo. Is that around 80, 81? Now I'm going to relate the disco to the hard rock era, where like the 80s had the hair bands, and then at the end of the 80s they became taboo, and it was like I've interviewed a lot of the guys from that era, and it was like they were out of work. Nobody would give them a chance. Nobody would give them the time of day. Nobody wanted no parts of them. Was it kind of the same way for your guys in your era?
I would definitely like to point out a great story from the book that kind of really illustrates that point, if I may. Janice Marie Johnson was the lead singer, one of the lead singers of A Taste of Honey. Their big hit was Boogie Oogie Oogie. They were on top of the world. Let me tell you, they had won the Grammy for Best New Group. Their song was a million seller. And she tells in the chapter in First Legends of Disco, she says that she was getting transported all over the place in a limo, and everything was great. When the downturn occurs, it was so difficult for her to find work, and financially she was becoming so stressed that she had to take a job as a limo driver. And so she says that, which is to me phenomenal. I mean, this woman is incredibly talented as a songwriter, singer, guitarist, and here she's taking a job, and not that there's anything wrong with being a limo driver, but that's a far cry from what she was doing. And she laughs about it now, but you could see that, this downturn had a very sobering effect on many careers. Absolutely.
How about you, Alpha? What kind of effect did it have on you?
Yeah, I was just going to say my story is a little different because I was teaching. I had a master's in teaching English, so I was teaching English at Hunter College here in the city of New York. So after disco, I went to Luther Vandross, who was a very dear friend. I worked with him. And then after that, I went back to school and got a second master's in school leadership and became a high school principal. So I just decided to take another path. I mean, I still sing and I'm still passionate about it. And thanks to James and his book, we are now getting more exposure and are putting together some things so that we can begin to tour. But I just took another, Southern girl that I am, I just took the route that I had prepared myself for, which was education.
So you had that something to fall back on.
Yeah, that's sort of like the way I was reared.
So you listened to your parents as you were growing up.
Listened.
You had that. Very good. Good for you. Now, how about like in today's in the world we live in today? Do you find it weird that after all these years, like we were saying earlier in the interview, like disco is accepted now. Like all genres of music are basically accepted today. Where it's like people don't have to be ashamed to say, I do like that song, or I do like this group, or I do like this era of music.
Well, I don't think it's weird. I think it's appropriate. I think it just shows that the music was timeless and therefore classic. And I think it's a wonderful thing. Disco never really died. It just reinvented itself.
Alpha's absolutely right. And when you look at the opportunities that are out there now, these artists are being rediscovered again. Almost, it's just like it's starting all over again. We are doing a big show in Palm Springs in May. It's a major AIDS fundraiser, and it actually marks the reunion of the original female vocalists from Chic. Which would be Lucy Martin, Alpha, and Norma Jean Wright. So that'll be the first time they'll be seen appearing together in many, 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 many years. So there are wonderful things happening now, and disco is very much alive and well. My manager, James Washington, and I are in outside discussions with people to see if we can bring these books to Broadway. I can't think of anything that would be better on Broadway than the stories of these great men and women combined together and with this great music. I mean, it's like it screams Broadway. So hopefully things like that will continue to happen and we'll keep the momentum going.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Now, for you, James, who were some of your interviews that really blew you away, that you were really most impressed with, beside Alpha?
From First Ladies of Disco, the first book, I was absolutely thrilled, of course, to get Gloria Gaynor. I think she's one of the most recognizable people from this genre, and so that was, of course, a big thrill for me. Also, I would say Madeleine Kane. She was a Warner Brothers recording artist, a very, very well-known model from back in the day, and very mysterious woman and always in the paparazzi photos. And she hadn't done an interview in close to 25 years and was very difficult to find. And she granted me an interview, which I was astonished at. I was so thrilled by that. And so that was a real thrill for me. In the second book, I have a great love for Sister Sledge of We Are Family. So I certainly was thrilled to speak to some of the members of that wonderful group. Sarah Dash from the original kind of rock R&B disco group LaBelle. She was a wonderful person to speak to. Dennis LePage, he was the producer and originator of the group Lime, another very reclusive person who I located in Canada. And I was absolutely thrilled that he spoke to me. And, of course, Alpha. Alpha has one of the best chapters, I think, in the whole book. She is so articulate and her descriptions of what she went through are so on point. It was a fascinating interview and not a lot of work, I just had to ask the questions and she gave me such wonderful responses. I think when people read her chapter, which I believe is the first one in the book, they're going to just fall in love with her.
Thanks, James.
Now, Alpha, how was it for you when you were approached by James to do an interview for the book?
I was honored because having gone back into education, I really had sort of put that behind me in a sense. I mean, my students knew who I was, and I would sing at school, and we would do that kind of stuff. But it sort of happened at the same time that my sons came to me and told me that they felt that I needed to go back and reclaim my legacy and let people know the work that I had done, and
nice.
not hide that. It came at the same time that they came to me and they said, look, you spent your time rearing us and being a wife and being a mom. Take this time for yourself and do the other thing that you're passionate about and the thing for which you've known, and you need to let people know that, and you need to accept and claim that legacy. So it's sort of all converged at the same time, the whole principle of time and timing.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems to be that everything's aligned right now, and I feel like this is just a wonderful, wonderful time in my life. I've always had these two passions: education and art, right brain, left brain kind of thing. And now they're all coming together.
That's awesome. Now, have you been doing any music at all, like over these years, or were you just focused on family and teaching?
No, I was actually doing music with my husband. We always wrote, and we always. We put out our little CDs on our own company. We did some spiritually based music. I did some things with him, and we would just have a big laugh about it, saying that, okay, how much money are we going to set aside this year for our hobby? Because we weren't making any money. Clearly, you've never heard of anything that I've done. So we've just laughed about it and say, okay, well, we can afford to spend X amount of money on our hobby this year, But you know what? It looks as if that's no longer going to be a hobby.
That's right.
It looks as if it's really going to become something that's going to bring a lot more. So the hobby that we've been practicing is now going to come front and center once again.
Very nice. Now, how about, like, over these years when you've heard artists sample chic music, what is going through your head when you've heard that?
It's, what's going through my head? Boy, I wish I had written that song.
Well,
that
like
would have been it, so I could every time it played, I could have gone ka-ching, ka-ching,
right,
ka-ching.
Right. Well, that's like before we went on the air tonight. I saw a commercial on TV for the movie Rio 2, which is like a kids animated movie, and I think it might be like a Disney or a Pixar, one of them. And it's like a cartoon of birds or something, but instead of freak out, it was beak out.
Ooh.
So that's exactly what I thought. I was like, cha-ching, somebody's getting paid.
Somebody's getting paid. Ka-ching.
Yep. Oh, that's funny. Now, actually, I found a song that you did do recently, Alpha.
Really? What did you find?
Yes, I did. I found Former Lady of Chic.
Ah, yes. That's the song that my sons wrote for me when they told me that they felt like I should come back. And they said, we want to write a song that's going to let people know who you are and what you've done and reintroduce you to the public so that you can get ready to do something more. This was clearly their idea. They wrote it and produced it along with my husband.
Nice.
So
if you'd like,
I
can play it for everybody. If you'd like.
Yeah.
Would you like
I'd love that.
All right, let's play it for everybody. Let's everybody
it's
give everybody a taste.
I call it my calling card.
Here's the calling card of Ms. Alfa Anderson, Former Lady of Chic. All right, there it is. Former Lady of Chic. You had to be like really proud to be able to work with your kids with that.
Yeah. It was amazing. They just came to me and said, we have a proposal for you. And and they had this song, and I'm like, we did a little bit to it to lessen the hip hop influence a little bit. It's still very much there, so we did a few things to it, but this was their idea, and the fact that they wanted to honor me that way, and tell me, look, you've done a great job. Go do your thing.
And you sounded in great voice, I might add.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know, part of my being ready and part of my hobby has always been taking my voice lessons, because you never know when the opportunity is going to present itself again.
That's right. There you go.
This is true. This is true. So, do you have any other big plans this year beside getting back together with Chic, like James was saying?
Well, I'm getting back together, not with Chic, but with the ladies formerly of Chic, the other lead vocalist. Yeah, because Nile Rodgers has a touring group that's amazing, you know, and he certainly had a stellar year. But yes, we are looking forward to doing a single and putting some, getting some more music. So more music will be coming at you. You know, I'm going to give you the countdown, and everybody that wants to know what's going on with me, I do have an artist page on Facebook. And it's former Lady of Chic, Alfa Anderson. Check it out, because what I'm doing right now is just a historical retrospective of the songs that we've done, and I'm talking about my remembrances and all of the things that I think that fans are asking. And so we're having a dialogue right now on that page that's pretty cool. It's certainly encouraging to me. But definitely stay tuned for more stuff from us.
Very good. And James, how about you? Any more disco books in you?
I'm not sure if I would do another book on disco. I'm not sure the market could take a third book on the same subject, but I am very busy. Well, not exactly, but I am going to continue the series with two more books about the 80s dance music artists. And I'm very busy on the first one. The first one's going to focus on Europe, and I've got some amazing people in this book already. I'm so excited about it. Very big stars from Europe that were popular in dance music over there, like Jennifer Rush, Amy Stewart, who also had a disco hit with Knock on Wood.
Yeah.
Right.
The lead singer of Milli Vanilli. I'm trying to think of all the people that are in this book. Ryan Paris of Dolce Vita. A lot of Italian, French, German, and artists from the UK. So I'm very excited about that. Once I wrap that one up, I'm going to tackle the American artists of dance music and from the 80s. So I'm kind of excited. The project continues, and I'm just moving through the decades.
Nice. Very nice. And the books are both available on Amazon.com.
That's
and
right.
Called the First Ladies of
Disco. Right, First Ladies of Disco and First Legends of Disco. 2 books.
2 books. Buy them both. And Dan,
I hope so.
Anything else you want to plug before we let you go?
Alpha, you have anything else going on?
No, just as I'm always looking to hear from fans and invite other people to my Facebook page, which I've already told you about. I do answer myself, you know, and I welcome you to join that forum.
That's great. And I also have a Facebook page for each of those books, First Legends of Disco, the book, First Ladies of Disco, the book. They're both on Facebook, and I welcome people to sign up and find out what's going on with everybody on there. I keep them pretty up to date, and I try to do some interesting posts on there, so I think they're worth checking out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, both of you. And actually, can I get you to cut a quick ID before I let you go? You say,
sure.
James, this is James Arena, the author of your books, and Alpha, former Lady of Chic, and you're listening to Totally Driven Radio.
Okay.
What did we call it again? Totally Driven, right?
Driven Radio.
Totally Driven Radio.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Are we doing it together?
You can do it together.
Now, you ought to get separate ones.
You want to get separate ones?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Oh, you want me to go? Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Alfa Anderson, one of the former lead singers of the group Chic. You know, Dance, 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 I Want Your Love, Good Times, La Freak, and I'm listening to Totally Driven Radio.
That was awesome. Thank you.
That was good.
That was good. And you got to follow that up, James.
I know. That's a little tough to follow up, but I'll give it a shot. Okay. All right, here's mine. Hey, this is James Arena. I am the author of First Ladies of Disco and First Legends of Disco, featuring 72 of the biggest stars in disco music. and you're listening to Totally Driven Radio.
Double awesome.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure
welcome.
and an honor.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the coverage for the books, and it's really been nice to talk with you guys. Very good conversation.
Absolutely. It was very rich, and I so appreciate you playing my single. Oh, I'm thrilled. I won't
And
sleep
that's available
tonight.
on iTunes. If anybody wants to get that, they can get that on iTunes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Be well, everyone.
You too.
Okay.
Take care, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, there they go. James Arena and Alfa Anderson. That's awesome.
All right, dude, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
I know what disco is. I think everybody knows what disco is, right?
Okay.
What the hell is dance music?
Just that. Music to dance to.
Like the waltz?
No. You know what?
Or
Maybe
like just random club music?
Yeah, well, he's writing about the 80s, so, I mean, you got to think, like, dance music in the 80s, probably like Madonna.
Okay, gotcha. Where they would
you know
do, like, the club remixes of, like, their hit singles or whatever?
Well, no.
No?
No.
So they would just, it would just be like a Madonna song, and they'd just be, like, dancing and...
Yeah, well, that was dance music back in the 80s.
Oh, wow. Like, I barely know what dance music is now. Like, I assume it's what, like, Megan Daniels plays, where it's, like, just weird, like, just you know what I mean? Like, rave music.
Well, I mean, that would be, like, modern day. I mean, modern day dance music would be, like, your Britney Spears stuff.
Yeah, but see, that's what I'm saying. That's way different than, like, that sort of electric stuff you hear in clubs, you know what I mean? Like, one is just pop, and then the other one is, you know, this weird subcategory. I don't know.
Well, that's, I mean, like, dance music of the 80s kind of was basically more or less like pop music.
It really was just pop.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, wow.
So, but, all right, well, let's, unless you have more questions on dance music and disco.
No, man. The only music I'm grunge and the Jackson 5. That's about as far as my musical repertoire goes.
All right. So in other words, I can button up now my satin shirt and cover up my chest hair, my gold chains, and we can take a commercial break.
Loosen up your pants.
I can loosen up my pants. That's tough for me. I'm a fat guy. Most of my pants are tight, so we'll figure it out though. All right, we'll be back in a few, and we'll be coming up with